You're on the road beyond. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Facebook Live. I'm Todd Duplantis. Joining me from across the country. Oh, by the way, it's good to be back and good to see you, Ike McFadden.
Hey, how are you, Todd?
Things are good. We took a bit of a break last week. I don't know if you had a chance over this past weekend, but 60 Minutes, they finally jump on the train here. We've been talking about UFOs and the government literally for the past couple of weeks. And these sightings and the Tic Tac videos. Well, guess what? 60 Minutes finally interviewed the experts, talking with former members of intelligence and the government, and they say, yes, there are actually things in our sky. We don't know what they are, folks, but guess what? They're here. We're not sure if they're from outer space, but we don't know what they are. Just go about your business.
Yeah, that's what could go wrong?
Yeah, nothing can go wrong here. Nothing to see here, just things in the sky. So yeah, there you go. We'll see more on that. And next month, there's going to be a major intelligence report that'll be dumped out. We'll see how much of that is retracted or blacked out to where you can't see it. But we'll report about that extensively here on the Road Beyond podcast. So Ike, what have you been up to over the past couple of weeks?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because, we had some time off and I'm sort of the skeptic on the show, sort of. And I was trying to think, well, how can I maybe create a framework around, we cover so many different things, so many different areas of interest. And I was trying to think, is there something that brings all this together? So I sort of created a chart. And so I'm thinking about the things that we cover. And so we've got like UFOs, triangles in the sky, lights, things out there.
Right.
And sort of next, we've got sort of cryptids, aquatic cryptids like Loch Ness, Bigfoot, Gulf Coast sea monster. And then we've got this other category of stuff, I'd say, like things that maybe were alive, but are not alive now. Like, so that's like ghosts, spirits. I have Paul McCartney here. I don't know.
That's a whole show in and of itself, because they're saying he's Billy Shears. But if it's Billy Shears and it's not Paul McCartney, he's been making some hell of good music over the past few years.
Whoever it is a good songwriter. Yeah. Now, so I'm thinking about, okay, well, what is above that? And I'm thinking there's sort of like a managerial level that sort of coordinates. So that's my guess. I think it's like Illuminati, the Masons, Trilateral Commission, obviously lizard people.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happens here. I've got time, space, but I'm trying to think, is there something above all of this that sort of is pulling all of these phenomenon together? And I'm not stating this. This is more of a question. I'm just going to put it out there. It's just,
Robert Kennedy.
I was wondering.
It all comes back to Kennedy. Yeah. Robert F. Kennedy. And I haven't been playing along over the past couple of weeks. Ike has this obsession that Robert Kennedy was a serial killer. We have no proof of that, nor are we claiming that. We're just saying Ike thinks that. But
you say obsession. Like, I don't think
it is a bit of an obsession.
Obsession would be like, for example, I keep all my money in a bag in the backyard. Now, that's because I don't trust banks. Okay. All right, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. So, we'll get on with that. Next week, we're going to talk about what we're going to do to address that. But, one thing I've always been fascinated with, Ike, from the original incarnation of this show, which was a TV pilot at one point, we went on a lot of investigations for ghosts. And that's always been something that fascinates me. And tonight we're joined by a very special guest on the Road Beyond. Richard Sennett was born in Los Angeles, California. He's the first son of an artist and decorator, Leonard Sennett, who worked for MGM Studios in Culver City. He grew up in Thousand Oaks until his father retired and moved to Ventura. He attended Ventura High School along with Ventura Community College. He went on to Long Beach State University, where he earned a degree in history.
Yeah, that's right. After that, Richard did post-grad work at UC Santa Barbara, which is a very good school, I've heard. After that, he was the site manager of archaeological and historical museums in the area. And he became interested in the paranormal after, appropriately enough, seeing a ghost. He's the author of 23 books on the subject of ghosts, folklore, local history, and mystery fiction. He's also appeared on a lot of TV shows over the years, from sightings to ghost adventures.
And Richard now resides in Ventura, and he's joining us on the show tonight. Richard Sennett, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. If we can get you to unmute your microphone. There we go.
Here,
well,
there we
not
are.
yet. There we go, Richard. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm fine today.
Good to see you on the show. I want to first welcome you here. I want to ask you hear about that first ghost encounter you had. Maybe you can tell us about the ghost experience that really inspired your career.
It was quite remarkable. Now, I have seen ghosts when I was a young child. I saw things I thought I saw, and I just dismissed them as over imagination, what have you. You know, I just made it up. Who knows? But then, while I was doing an archaeological dig at one of the old Spanish missions, I was up very late working on a project. Everybody else had gone to bed.
Right.
But that day, I had KP, which meant I had to wash the dishes for the team, but I also had the key to the kitchen and, more importantly, the locker where they kept the cupcakes. So I was hungry, and I decided to help myself to a cupcake before I went to bed. I have to give up the key the next morning, so it was a good opportunity to do it. I walked into the courtyard, and right off to my left, I saw a little bit of a light out of the corner of my eye. Mm-hmm. And as I watched, it was moving like I was, parallel to me. And my eyes were adjusting because of darkness. So wasn't a lot of light out. This is like 12:30 at night. And as I noticed, I could see it was a monk dressed, you know, on a hood and had a candle in his hand. That's what I was looking at, the candlelight. Well, as I went, it didn't look supernatural, and it didn't scare me because the mission is still a monastery. Right. The monks lived there. I thought, I'll go and talk to the brother and see if he could want to join me for a cupcake. Who knows? So I decided to walk up to him, and I was about 10 feet away. Well, all of a sudden, just like that, he vanished away. Now, I had seen this for well over 2 minutes. Walked and seen it. It looked completely solid. It didn't glow. It wasn't transparent. It looked like a guy wearing a monk's habit. And then all of a sudden, gone. And so that's what caused me to wander.
It always fascinates me because I always ask people who had an experience like this, what did the apparition look like? You're saying it looked like a normal person. And here's the question I would throw out there. Could we all be seeing real apparitions and not realize they're an apparition? Unless it would have disappeared in front of you, you could have passed by this person and thought this was just a normal person.
Many of us, I do think, see them. And we think they're just regular people. Oh, that guy's wearing an odd costume. He must be at a play or something, and yet not know that they're really ghosts. But here's a big question. You're making an assumption. The assumption is that this is a spirit of a dead person who's come back. It might not be. There are many other explanations to account for ghosts. It could be that it was a hole in time, and I was looking simply back 100 years to when there really were ghosts there, or even yesterday when the monks who lived there were walking in the courtyard. So it could be time warped. It could be interdimensional bleed-throughs from other dimensions where there are missions with monks in them. So there's a lot of explanations for them. They could even be projections of our own minds that somehow are impressed on the environment and play back like a bit of videotape from time to time. There's many explanations besides the folkloric one of dead peoples walking around like zombies, for one reason or another. So anyway, that's what got me started. I even asked some monks who lived there the next day, any stories about ghosts here? And they said, we see them all the time. And then they told me about one of their members who was a saintly man, wonderful fella, who died, and yet they'd see his ghost walking the grounds with a candle late at night.
Incredible.
Maybe that's what I encountered. Whatever it was, it caused me to take this up. I wanted to find out if I was crazy or not. The good news, if I'm crazy, millions upon millions of other people are crazy too. And in the course of the 40 years since then, I have seen about 25 ghosts myself. and I've gone to over 200 haunted houses and haunted places. All sorts of different stuff out there. Do I have all the answers? No. Do I wish I had them? Yes, but I'm still seeking answers because it's the greatest riddle of them all.
So, Richard, your new book is The Ghosts of Santa Barbara. Now, I've lived in Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara is certainly a beautiful area. This is my own ignorance. I wasn't aware that it was a particularly ghostly area. Is there some history behind that, or why you chose that area to inspire this particular book? Can you tell us about that?
Well, actually, it wasn't my idea at all. I have a publisher. And when you're a writer, you have a publisher. You're kind of like their slave. And they said, write me a book about Santa Barbara. Now, what do? You write a book about Santa Barbara. But I live in Ventura, which is just south of Santa Barbara. And so I already had some stories, and I had done some investigations up there. So I went through my files and found a surprising number of stories from which I used to base this book upon. Now, there's an old mission there. And the missions, every one of the 21 missions are haunted. Every one. Now, why that's the case, I don't know. It could be because so many Native people died in them.
Right.
It could have something to do with guilt. It could be just the age, or it might have something to do with the material they're built out of. They're made out of thick adobe and stone walls. Think about it. What are haunted places? Castles. What are they made out of? Big rocks. Places with natural material, thick walls tend to be more haunted. Brick, for instance. Lighter weight stuff, not so much. So even that element could play a role in why ghosts are seen at those particular locations.
So when you say missions, that's just to refresh our historical memory. That's going all the way back to the Spanish during what kind of time era are we talking about there?
We're talking about the 1760s, 1769 to about 1812, 1820. So it's that Spanish era. And they came in and to convert the native people, but under their sway, many of the native people perished. In fact, what was the average life of a mission convert? 7 years. 7 years. That's it. After 7 years, you were dead. And what did them in?
They were exposed to a lot
of diseases brought by the Europeans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we did a story on that a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned you've seen around 24 apparitions or had some ghost experiences. What were there any? You said the first time when you saw the monk, it didn't scare you. Were there any that just terrified you?
Yes. Anybody who tells you I'm not afraid of no ghosts, they're lying to you through their teeth. This is an unknown country. We're dealing with unknown forces here. It could be benign, could be very malicious. We don't know. But yes, I had an encounter in Hollywood that was quite scary at a mansion down there. I had another one at a large, again, another mansion here in the Ventura area, a place called Ojai, where a lot of wealthy people and movie stars live. In fact, this was a place that was owned by Reese Witherspoon.
Wow.
But I went in there to investigate it. Interestingly enough, it was built in 1915, again, out of adobe brick. And I was with a team investigating. Every one of us saw this ghostly woman appear. She was walking away from us, then she stopped. This is amazing, because most sightings are very short. This was there for well over 5 minutes. She stood, and she turned back and looked at us. And then, this is the first and only time this ever happened to me. She slowly faded out, becoming transparent, and then finally wasn't there.
Wow.
And as soon as she was gone, I was down that hallway where she'd been seen, looking for mirrors, projectors, anything that could have caused it. Nothing. In fact, I later took the team and I separated each and every one of them and I said, okay, draw me a picture as best you can of what you saw. And remarkably, of the 12 people, 11 had the same image, down to the way the skirt ruffle was located. It was really quite amazing. And we later learned that the man who built the the mansion, only lived there for 3 months, and he and his wife left. She's had something happen. So it's that was an interesting account, but I've had numerous others. And yes, have I gotten scared? Yes. And have there been times where I've wanted to run? Yes. Have I run a few times? Yeah, I've done that too. And we're dealing with unknown entities, but I'm still out there trying to get answers. That's a big question. I don't say I've got the answers, and anyone who does, says they're an expert on ghosts, don't believe them for a second. We're all students. We're trying to get to the answers. And it could be that there is an explanation we as yet do not know.
Well, if you had to take just your guess at the moment, in terms of if you had to explain this, and this was your final word on the subject, what is your guess on what's going on with this?
Well, I'm now toying with a new theory. And I've done this throughout my career. I'll get a theory and I'll figure, aha, that's it. That answers all the questions. And one of my first one was to do with psychometry, that impressions are trapped in an environment, again, thick walls. But I had to discount that because other things came out. My theory I'm working on now has to do with something called the Mandela effect. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
I'm aware of the Mandela, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
That means that we live in an interdimensional universe. Mm-hmm. And that means that there are dimensions of different qualities all the way along. And in those other dimensions are duplicates of us. You, me, whatever. They're in this other dimension. And sometimes that dimension and this dimension comes very close. And we can look into that dimension and see what appears to be ourselves. Yes, people have seen ghosts of themselves, perhaps dead loved ones, which in their dimension didn't die. Whatever it is, it could be, that's what I'm dealing with, is this interdimensional quality. That might explain Bigfoot, because in another dimension, Giganticus, which a creature like Bigfoot, didn't die out like he did in ours 30 million years ago. And so what we're doing is seeing into that other dimension briefly. UFOs, we see them in the sky. Maybe they're not UFOs. Maybe they're just another dimension where George Jetson is trying to fly his way to work. So all we're seeing is images. Like imagine if people in the 18th century saw a helicopter hovering above them from our era. Now we would just dismiss it, just a copter. He would be, what is this, a demon from another world, from the pit or something? So it could be that that's a theory I'm playing with now, is the interdimensional theory that might account for not all, but at least some ghost sightings.
For some of these sightings that you've had, are they more or less hauntings where something is being replayed over and over? Maybe it's because of the adobe and the stone. Or have you been able to interact with these spirits where they're intelligent and maybe have responded or reacted to you?
Okay, that's a good question, because I've been to many haunted places. Most of the sightings have been like a bit of videotape. You can't interact with them. You might as well talk to your TV set. It does not have a thing. But on rare occasions, just a few times, we're talking 3 or 4%, you actually get a response. There is an actual intelligence behind it. And this is, I think, what I call a true haunt. They're very rare, but they do seem to exist. There's enough out there to cause me to believe that there are a real event that's happening out there. It's still, as I say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm out there trying to find answers.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I'll be curious we should talk to you when your next book comes out and see if you have any new theories.
Yeah, I'm still working on different elements. I've got a whole bunch of new projects. I just love to write. I actually write for newspapers and magazines, as well as different things, doing TV shows and investigations. I believe it's your duty as an investigator, as a historian, to actually write and share your data like you're doing with this podcast. It should be shared. In fact, that's what I hate about so many ghost hunters today. They selfishly guard their material. Oh, this is my area of haunted expertise. No, we've got to share our data. Oh, what would happen if that guy in England discovered penicillin and didn't share it with the rest of the world? Oh, I'm going to sit on my find. No, we've got to actually share. And by sharing, we can gain new insight. For instance, here's a point. How come stairways are so haunted? Staircases. Why? People go up and down them. Oh, some fall down, I imagine, but not a lot. But a lot of haunted houses, the staircase is a focal point. Another thing, bathrooms. Why are bathrooms haunted? You'd think as a ghost you wouldn't need to do that anymore, but they are haunted.
Yeah. What are your theories behind the staircase?
I think it has to do with energy. People going up and down the stairs, thinking about stuff. They leave something behind, and then whatever is there is charged up. And this could actually have something to do with our minds, making us more receptive to ghosts. That's a theory anyway.
Richard, you host a TV show called Destination Ventura. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Yes, we have a local TV. In fact, I had a cable show many years ago. We're talking the 80s, the 1980s, really, called Remarkably Ghost Hunters. And this is long before TAPS got involved with it. And we actually went out to sites and visited. We did seances on the air. We had all kinds of different psychics come on, and some that were pretty well out of whack. And like the man who slept with Bigfoot, and I wonder if she had his baby. I don't know. But I had a lot of different people on that show, and the new one is Destinations. It's both historical, ghostly, and folkloric. So we have a lot of fun with it, but again, it's only a local phenomenon.
Well, that's great. Well, Richard, if people want to follow you on social media or online, where should people search you out?
Well, the best place to get me is on Facebook. I have a Facebook page called Richard Sennett Ghost Hunter. Can't go wrong with that. And you can always contact me there, or you can get me on the internet. I have a web, a site. You can contact me. I get mail from all over the world. I was just talking to a guy from Norway who had a ghost problem in his house, a very unique kind of ghost that only happens in two places, Norway and Scotland. Why? I don't know that. They're called a Vardorj. You've ever heard of it?
No, haven't. No, that's interesting.
And the Vardorj is you hear someone coming home from work 15 minutes before they actually do. And then you look around, oh, so-and-so's home, there's nobody there. And then 15 minutes later, it all reenacts. So what in the world is that? I don't know. Anyway, a lot of mysteries yet to be solved.
Richard Sennett, thank you for joining us on the show tonight. We appreciate it, and hopefully we can get you back on again.
Thank you. I've had a lot of fun, and good luck in your work. You're doing great work, getting the word out there to share data, share information.
Thank you, Richard. We appreciate you being here. All right. So, Ike, interesting enough, you said you've been to Santa Barbara, but you never really had any paranormal activity while you were out there?
No, and apparently I need to update some of my charts here because I didn't know about the stairwell thing. And
I like that. I like the interdimensional thing. I totally buy into that and we've had guests on shows talk about the Bigfoot theory where it could be an interdimensional being, mainly because we don't have a body of one. Nobody's found one, and the pictures are all shaky. They disappear, and they are tied into maybe some UFO things. So you don't know, and it's one of the theories behind Bigfoot.
Well, and I can't help but notice, you talked about stairwells and bathrooms. You never see those in the same room.
You never, yep, there you go. Another tie-in there. All right, Ike, it is time for the news. Here's a look at some of the weird, tantalizing, and just plain bizarre stories posted from our partners at the Full Spectrum Project on Facebook. Ike, I know you've missed this section of the show over the past couple of weeks, but here we go. First article up for discussion, 100-year-old haunted house mystery solved by a professor and an ophthalmologist. Okay, folks, buckle up and get ready for this one. First story comes to us from iflscience.com. It talks about a weird haunting case that was ultimately solved by a professor and an ophthalmologist more than 100 years ago. Here's the case. The story took place in 1912. Centers around a couple and their family. The husband and wife, referred to here as Miss H and Mr. G. Apparently, the family had their house destroyed by fire. Well, they moved into a new place as a temporary home. They described this temporary home as being a bit run down. And of course, it hadn't been occupied for more than 10 years. It was a dump, okay? But it was all that was available. It will have to do for a short time while their new house is being fixed. They described, they said G and H say the family had only been moved into this temporary home for a few days when they started feeling depressed, okay? The home was kind of dank and, dark. It was a bit musty, I'm sure, and very cold. Here's the reason why. They described the home as overwhelmingly calming, even though they had to make their servants walk around on thick carpeted floors to muffle the sounds of their steps. Oh my. Imagine that, having your servants be quiet because they're bothering you. Well, apparently the furnace was out in the house. So they stayed there with the kids, and then weird things started happening. People were heard walking upstairs when actually there was no one upstairs. Mr. G had a habit of eating a piece of fruit before he went to bed. Well, he kept thinking, someone's watching me. Yeah, well, apparently there was no one there. Then he started developing a headache. Everything went to hell after that. The furnace was eventually fixed. The kids and the family, well, they've been gone for a little while. They moved back in with the wife. The whole family then started reportedly feeling ill. The children became pale, listless, and lost all interest in playing in their playroom at the top of the house. It got so bad, Ike, that Mrs. H took the kids and left Mr. G alone for a few weeks, or so he thought. Apparently, these ghosts that the ones that like watching him snack on fruit, well, they were raising hell, like ringing doorbells, slamming doors, and making all types of nonsense. After a few weeks, the wife and kids then returned again, and then things got really weird. Apparently, one night, Mrs. H reported waking up in the middle of the night to the sounds of footsteps, doors slamming, pots crashing, dogs and cats sleeping together, and it was all happening downstairs. Well, she runs downstairs. There's no one there. Just crazy stuff going on. Well, they're thinking the poltergeist who pummeled the family for a few months even bothered the family's nurse. They had a nurse living in this house as well. She reported she was attacked by a ghostly image of a man while the family was out at the opera. Okay. She was convinced the house was haunted. She'd heard footsteps of the old man slowly walking above her, as well as following her when she walked around the house. If that wasn't weird enough, she even reported waking up in the middle of the night, seeing this ghostly old man at the end of the bed, and then claims some woman was whispering in her ear. That was it. They all had enough. They had to get out of the place. So what happened there? Well, Ike, you remember the furnace? Well, apparently the furnace still wasn't working properly. Upon further investigation by a doctor, the ophthalmologist, and a college professor, they decided this family wasn't haunted. They were high. Apparently, they were hit up by, it wasn't ghosts or apparitions, carbon monoxide poisoning, causing hallucinations. Therefore, yeah, that was the cause of this haunting story. So there you go. If they would have had a carbon monoxide detector like many of us have in our homes, this wouldn't have happened back in 1912.
Yeah, I have to say, if I had to guess what percentage of sightings involved noxious chemicals, mold, carbon monoxide, I'm guessing it's this. There's probably an entire history. We should write a book, The History of Mold and Carbon Monoxide and Hauntings.
Okay, we're going a bit long for this episode. I'm going to really try to get through this next one. I want to get to it because we talked about it in the last episode. You remember Ape Canyon?
I do remember Ape Canyon. Some of my best memories are from there.
There you go. Who could forget this? Well, the next story comes to us via one of last show's guests, Steve Stockton. It was published on alterdimensions.com. Well, if you remember Ape Canyon, an event happened in July of 1924. It made it in several newspapers of the day. A small group of miners reported staying in a summer cabin, remember that, and they came under attack by what they were calling a gang of wild ape men, which later were referred to as big, hairy mountain devils. Okay. Do you ever encounter those in Sewanee?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the event was documented in an eyewitness account from a man named Fred Beck, who went on to write a book about the event, even calling the creatures extra-dimensional beings. You remember that from earlier in the show. Well, now the Dark Waters Paranormal Group is reporting that they possibly found the location of one of the most significant reports in cryptid history. For many years, it was presumed this cabin site where these hairy devils attacked them, well, it was destroyed by Mount St. Helena's eruption in 1980. That's where Ape Canyon is located. We're in Washington, for those of you taking notes. After 5 years of research and investigation, they're claiming that they found the site of the cabin, Ike. But here's the kicker. They're not ready to publicly disclose it.
Well, I'm going to have to update my, I didn't consider any of this.
All right. So yeah. So Ike's artwork will be available for sale in our store on our website. So we'll put that up there. We're going to have that made into a poster. All right. Let's wrap up the show before we lose more guests right now. We have another show coming up. Check out our next one. Find us on Facebook, Twitter as The Road Beyond Podcast. And we also have a YouTube channel, Ike.
Yeah, I hope people will subscribe to it. Click the notification button, like it if you do. It's up there, and you ought to be able to get all the shows within like 48 hours delay. It'll be on YouTube.
That's right. Yeah, so you can catch the show on YouTube. All right, next guest is on deck. We will see you next time on The Road Beyond. More drawings from Ike in the next show.
See you next time.